Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to talk today about loneliness. I saw this article that I thought was fascinating, but also deeply disturbing, and I wanted to share it with you guys and get your thoughts on it. I'm not going to read the whole article. I will, of course, include the link in the video description, but I do want to read parts of it and offer my commentary on it because I was actually quite shocked by this. So it's called Aren't You Lonely? Friendship has become another joyless thing to do on a screen. And we always see young kids like this. I'm sure you guys see them as well when you're trying to interact with people. These kids are permanently glued to their devices, and it's certainly not a good thing. So she says, the most common question people ask me when I say I don't use Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, or TikTok is, aren't you lonely? Aren't you cut off? How do you stay in touch with people? In a way, these are strange questions. I find it strange because my generation, Gen Z, so the author of the article, of course, is Gen Z, is the loneliest generation. Now, she's also I believe British, but this applies to Gen Z pretty much across the board in the West, not just in the UK. This is all around. They are self-reporting to be, the most lonely. In the UK, Gen Z, people aged 16 to 29, are twice as likely to say they feel lonely often or always than those over age 70, twice as likely as the elderly. Think about that for a second here. If you are in your 70s, you're basically elderly and you're kind of towards that end of life uh, time. And it's just a fact that it can be lonely. A lot of people that age have lost their spouse. So some of them are widowed. That's got to be lonely. And a lot of them are put into nursing homes to be cared for by strangers, not even their actual family. So for young people in Gen Z to be reporting feeling twice as lonely as the elderly, that is very, I think, concerning. Over 30% of young people say they don't know how to make new friends and they've never felt more alone. And we can see the chart here. Loneliness is rising among American teens from 1997 to 2021. They report having fewer friends that they can get together with and feeling very lonely. And this is, eighth, 10th grade, 12th grade boys and girls. That is very sad. As well as having fewer friends, members of Gen Z spend much less time together in person than did those in previous generations. American teens meet up with their friends far less than those in the 90s. Three quarters, listen to this is terrifying. Three quarters of UK children spend less time outside than actual prison inmates. This is insane to me. And I know there's a variety of reasons for this. Um, as far as not going outside. Like when I was a kid, you had to play outside. We were told to go outside to play and not come back until like the sun went down or it was dinner time. And you had to play with the kids in your neighborhood because, again, this was before the internet. Where you could FaceTime with each other like these kids do all day. You had to hang out with people who were in your immediate area and you didn't always like each other. So it was just one of those things. But this is crazy to me that these kids are spending so much time inside. They're not going outdoors. That is not good for them. Of course, it's more than statistics. Look around. Loneliness is everywhere. Gen Z are posting friendship applications on Facebook. They're ruminating on Reddit forums about why they feel so lonely and there's no community anymore. They eat dinner with YouTubers. These are like people that do these mukbang videos. There are people who, have to work maybe two, three jobs and it is lonely. And maybe to them, it's better to watch a video of somebody eating a meal and while they eat their meal so they don't feel like they're eating alone, which in many cases they are. I think that's terrible that this is where we are as a society. Apparently Gen Z likes to pretend that they're FaceTiming influencers. That's bizarre. They play video games alone in their rooms or watch strangers play video games instead. Yeah, look at how many big YouTube channels there are of people who are just live streaming themselves playing video games, and people watch that content. That's crazy to me. Of course, there are explanations for the loneliness, the decline of third spaces, the collapse of faith. I'd say that's the main problem here. If you don't know who you are, you don't know where you come from and why you're here, and you don't know Christ, yeah, you're going to feel lost and alone. The fallout from COVID and lockdowns. Recently, I was sitting at one of John's talks in London, and he asked members of Gen X and baby boomers to think back on their childhoods. Now, this is where it gets absolutely insane. He asked them to remember all the things they did, all the adventures they had, and then imagine removing 70% of the time hanging out with friends. And that's conservative estimate, at least 70%. Next, remove hobbies, then risks and thrills and adventures where you might have gotten hurt. Imagine 80% of that is gone, and then what you have left is pretty much nothing. That's how these kids are growing up, and we wonder why they grow up to be such snowflakes, why they feel the need to have the state, the government, protect them from things that are scary, from words. It's because as they were kids, they never went outside to play. They didn't have to, argue or fight with people. They didn't develop resiliency or social skills. This is also why they all report feeling anxiety and social anxiety. That also comes from not knowing Christ, from having a lack of faith. If you have faith, you have nothing to fear, because God is the one in control, and you know that he loves you and it wants what's best for you. But these kids don't have that, and I think it's heartbreaking. And the author who wrote this, again, she is Gen Z. She said, I felt a bit sick because I didn't need to imagine it. I never snuck out. I didn't build a den or a hideout in the woods, and I can't remember goofing around in the park or going on teenage adventures. I just can't imagine. How did you never sneak out of your house? You never snuck out onto the porch when you were a kid with your friends. You didn't sneak out and go to like concerts you weren't supposed to go to. Like, what did these kids do? They're literally just sitting inside on the internet all day. How do you not build a hideout or a fort in the woods? You never built a tree house. What did you do? What do you do with your friends? You never goofed around at the park. I just don't understand, like, if you're not doing those things, then what are these kids doing? How are they living their life? She says, I came home from school and immediately loaded up MSN. I kept up snap streaks with friends alone in my room. When friends did come over for sleepovers, all they do is take pictures and selfies to post on Facebook. We posted questions on anonymous messaging platforms like Ask FM. We spoke to naked strangers on Omegle. Sometimes we sat side by side scrolling. That is not a real, I don't even know what to call that. These are not real interactions. These are shallow, these are hollow, performative motions, I guess. It's not, why have a friend over if you're just going to sit next to each other scrolling on your devices? It means you don't care about that person. You're not interested to hear how their day went or to get updates from them. And many of this also is because so many of these kids are posting all of these details about their personal lives online for people to consume. So you don't have to ask somebody, hey, what have you been doing this week? Because you already know, because they posted on social media. They overshare, and then when they're in person with each other, it's very awkward and very weird. I just think that we need to get rid of this. We need to get rid of social media, or we really need to change and limit how young people use it. So she says this is what she thinks happened. Phone-based social media platforms emerged in the early 2010s, and they didn't just take away time from real-life relationships. They redefined friendship for an entire generation. They gutted it. They removed the requirements of, effort, doing more than the bare minimum, of loyalty, of even meeting up. You don't even have to meet up with someone in person now to be their friend. And they replace them with things like following each other back, exchanging likes, and posing for selfies together. Facebook made becoming friends as easy as clicking a button, and Snapchat reduced staying in touch to a black screen with the word streak. I, again, have never used Snapchat, so I don't know what this is referring to, but it sounds goofy, and I don't know why people would want to use that. They took teenage friendship, which used to be full of friction, thrills, and adventure, and made it another joyless thing to do on a screen, another thing to be performed and marketed and publicly measured. Yeah, they commodified it. And not only that, but think about this. Think about the amount of data they've harvested on these young people, the companies, the third party advertisers who are purchasing the the data from Facebook, that they know where you go, who you're with on what days, what you're reading, what you're like, they know more about you than you know about yourself, and they use that to curate your Facebook feed. They're the ones deciding what information you're seeing and interacting with, and they've admitted that they put negative stuff in there that they know are going to trigger people's fears and insecurities, because it keeps them using the app longer. It keeps them scrolling longer. It keeps them engaged more. It is a thing. We know this. So it's not good. As John writes in chapter 6 of The Anxious Generation, when everything moved onto smartphones in the early 2010s, both girls and boys experienced a gigantic increase in the number of their social ties and, of course, the time required to service these ties, such as reading people's posts online, commenting on their posts, on the posts of acquaintances, maintaining dozens of Snapchat streaks with people who are not your close friends. The explosive growth necessarily caused a decline in the number and depth of close friendships. So many of us don't have friends anymore at all. We have followers. We don't deeply care about each other's lives. We consume them as content. You guys know that this is true. We don't have people we can be vulnerable with. We have people who view our stories. It is hard to tell if we have loyalty or just people liking our posts so that we will like theirs back. Nowadays, we meet someone new and immediately exchange our social media with them and end up committing to scrolling and skipping through each other's lives forever. Friends are for keeping up snap streaks. Friends are for forwarding each other memes our algorithms sent us first. Friends are numbers. Sometimes it feels like the only one asking us what's on your mind is Facebook. Thank goodness I don't use Facebook, Lord have mercy. But does this not sound dystopian, terrifying, demonic, which I would suggest it is? And this is, in my opinion, a large part of the reason that kids are spending so much time online is because they are not spending time in church. They're not spending time with their families anymore. There, so many of these kids, from the time they're young, their parents put a tablet in front of their face, a screen, and that's what is raising these children. And we wonder why they're so lonely and sad. Now these companies have the nerve to sell us their substitutes. Sure, Snapchat hollowed out friendship, but hey, so what? Now Snapchat AI is here, someone to talk to every day who acts like a real friend. Or we can replace what we lost with Replica, the chatbot for anyone who wants a friend with no judgment, drama, or social anxiety involved. Meanwhile, Snapchat tells us that the way back to meaningful connection is to boost those friendship numbers. And don't worry, those real life friendships these companies degraded, we can purchase new ones. Try this Tinder for Friends app. Pay for premium features. Our new best friend is always one swipe away. How creepy is this? How disturbing. And I'll give my thoughts on things like Tinder. You know, I've done it before. I believe it was created by Israeli intelligence as a front for espionage and blackmail. Now, why do I think that? Because it makes sense to me. Not only are they choosing who you're, how does it work? I think that you match with somebody. Who's choosing and ultimately controlling that? Who's orchestrating who meets who? And there's somebody pulling the strings in the background, I would suggest. Not only that, but think about how many married people use these dating apps to engage in infidelity on their spouses, to engage in affairs. And now the app has that information on you. Think about it. One thing that I think has been a good positive sign is to see that young people specifically Gen Z, seem to be rejecting these online dating apps and recognizing them for the scams that they are, thank goodness. But now they're branching out and saying, okay, you don't want to do a dating app, you're lonely and you have no friends. Here, use it to meet friends. Here's the Tinder friend version. It is absolutely insane. And then this replica thing is just it's an AI that tells you literally what you want to hear. It says, "You know what? I think you are a very sensitive person." Imagine talking to a chatbot and having it just tell you things like that. This is going to create so much like there's already so much delusion, but that's going to make it worse. I'm not saying nobody in Gen Z has real friends, but we do have fewer, and I'm speaking for the many who are lonely. The ones who, like me, were quiet and shy children and didn't stand a chance when these platforms came along promising quick and painless connection. The ones who were left without any deep connections to anyone. My advice to them is simple, and I think that this is great advice. Forget those who view your Instagram story but never ask you how you're actually feeling. Forget the people who use you like a prop so that they can look good on social media, but otherwise can't be bothered to even come over, to do anything with you, to even pick up the phone and give you a phone call. And if someone wouldn't remember you if you deleted your social media account, so be it. I agree with that. And so she says, the kinds of people that you should be cultivating as friends are the people who don't care about your online persona, the people who care about the real you, and the people who think that the performative social media stuff that you do is cringe. Those are the people you should have around. And I agree with that. The people who also will keep you grounded and humble as these social media platforms tend to exacerbate narcissistic tendencies, because people can go on these platforms, they can vent, their traumas or whatever they call it, and then they can immediately get attention, validation, and get their egos fed by all of these random strangers who are only doing that so that they can also feel validated and so that people do it to them. They're hoping to get the same kind of thing, and then everybody's just validating each other's egos, and it's a very shallow and hollow, um, very self-absorbed, self-involved thing, parading around as people trying to give each other advice or just trying to vent online. No, you're oversharing, and you're doing that because you're hoping to get validation and attention because you are sad. But how about you address the actual problem within you, which is the spiritual void that so many of these young people have? So I agree with this. She says she's made an effort to do this, and there's times where she feels lonely because she doesn't, post selfies anymore. She doesn't have a lot of, fake friends giving the heart emoji to it. Like, so what? She doesn't post personal updates, so she doesn't have people who pretend to care how her holiday was or who she's dating. But now when friends reach out to her, it is because they actually care, not because your Instagram stories relentlessly remind them that you exist. They remember your birthday because they actually care about it and they make the effort to do so, not because Facebook is nudging them, and because they never forgot the date. I think that that's a good point. And so this is pretty much all I wanted to share with you guys. I just thought that the numbers there was pretty crazy and kind of horrifying, that we have people who are in Gen Z who should be having like the best time of their lives. This is when they should be the least lonely, and they report feeling more lonely than elderly people and never having experienced some of the things that we experienced in childhood. I find that terrifying. But anyways, I'm interested to know, what do you guys think? And I hope you all have a good day.